So we already know the basics of solving for a variable, right? So to review, the opposite of multiplication is division, right? And the opposite of addition is subtraction. Okay, those are opposite operations. And in order for us to be able to solve an equation for a variable, we need to be able to know how to do these opposite operations. Now, when it comes to equations that look like this, we have multiple variables. Okay, for these ones, we're going to be solving for x. But the reason that these are so useful is because we can take these equations and really we can solve for whatever variable we want to. We just need to know how to use these opposite operations. Okay, so let's take a look at this first one. This x, the only thing that's keeping it from being by itself on this side of the equal sign is this 1/2. Now with fractions, what we can do is to cancel these fractions out, we just multiply them by their reciprocal, which means that we just flip these numbers. So the 2 goes on top, the 1 goes on bottom. And when we multiply those together, those are going to cancel out. So we are just going to be left with an x. But remember, anything that we do on this side of the equation, we have to do to this side of the equation. So the reciprocal of 1/2, 2 over 1 is just 2, okay? Anything over 1 is just a fancy way of saying it's just this number, okay? So we have x equals 2 times u plus 6, okay? And there's a couple different ways that you can write this. You can just take this 2 and multiply it by u plus 6. But typically the more proper way that you're going to write out this answer, you're going to distribute this 2 in. So 2u plus 12. Okay, and now this x is alone on this side of the equal sign. And since these are not like terms, they do not share the same variable, we can't add these together any further. So this is where we're going to leave it. This is going to be our answer for this one. Okay, x equals 2u plus 12. We could have solved for u. It would have been a similar process. We just do the opposite operations to isolate u. But that's as far as we're going to go on that one. On this side over here, we're still going to be solving for x. Okay, so what we're going to do, all of these are just being added or subtracted from each other on this side. It makes it pretty easy for us. Okay, so we have this negative z, and a negative z is, for all intents and purposes, very similar, if not the same, as subtraction. Okay, so to cancel out this z and to bring it over to this side, to get this x by itself, we're going to take plus z, and remember, anything that we do to this side, we have to do to the other side. So we're going to add z, and we can also, while we're here, subtract this y, because plus y, the opposite of plus y is minus y. So we're going to take it on both sides. That's going to cancel out, and then that's going to cancel out. And then what are we left with? We've got a negative x equals, we got our 5/7 plus that z minus y. Okay, that's what we've got. Now, it looks like x is alone on this side of the equal sign, but it's really not, because we've got this negative here. This negative is the last thing keeping us from having this be alone. So the way that we combat this is we need to make sure that this x doesn't change, like the number needs to stay the same, or the term. So the only way that we can do that is by either multiplying or dividing by 1. Okay, and typically when you see something like this, it's going to be like a negative 1 times x. So I typically opt for dividing by a negative 1. And remember, anything that we do on that side, we have to do to this side. So we are dividing by a negative 1. That negative cancels out to leave us with x equals now a positive x, but over here everything has to be divided by -1. And since dividing by 1 means that we're not changing the numbers, the only thing that matters here is this negative sign. Because if we have a negative, one negative in any multiplication or division problem, this negative is going to overtake anything else, okay? So a positive divided by a negative, that negative is going to take control. So we're going to be left with a -5/7 and a negative z. So we're going to end up subtracting that z. But now we've got a -y and a -1. So just like over here, how this -1 canceled out that negative, it's going to be the same thing. This is going to turn into a positive y. And now, with having done that, we have solved this equation for x.